The rain had been falling for 3 hours by the time I pulled into the driveway of 1247 Maple Grove Lane. 3 hours of steady, soaking October rain that turned everything gray and cold and miserable. But it wasn't the weather that made my blood freeze in my veins. It wasn't the way the windshield wipers squeaked against the glass, or the way my rental car's headlights cut through the darkness at 11:17 p.m. It was the garbage bags. Dozens of them, lined up along the front walkway like body bags at a crime scene. Black plastic stretched tight over lumpy contents, some already torn open by the weight of whatever was inside. My clothes spilled across the muddy lawn like evidence of a life interrupted. A red sweater I'd worn to last Christmas dinner. The blue dress I'd bought for my college graduation. Books with their pages fanned open, drinking in the rain that would warp them beyond saving. But it wasn't even the destruction that stopped my breath in my throat and made my hands shake on the steering wheel. It was the sound of laughter. High and bright and performative, cutting through the rain like broken glass. The kind of laughter that meant someone was enjoying themselves at someone else's expense. The kind that came with an audience. And here we have the belongings of a 26-year-old woman who never learned to appreciate what she had, came the voice that had tucked me in at night for 23 years, now bright and theatrical, narrating my destruction like she was hosting a cooking show. Tonight, folks, we're cleaning house. Literally. Through the rain-streaked windshield, I could see her clearly. Vivian Ashworth, the woman who'd raised me since I was 3 years old, holding her phone up to catch the perfect angle of my humiliation. Ring light positioned just so, makeup still perfect despite the weather, blonde hair styled like she was about to film a commercial. Which I realized with growing horror, she was. If this opening just made your blood boil, you're in the right place because what you're about to witness is the most satisfying takedown of a toxic family. But here's the thing, this story gets so much more insane than you think. We're talking federal crimes, million-dollar inheritances, and a revenge so perfect it'll restore your faith in justice. Hit that subscribe button right now and buckle up, because I am about to teach my family a lesson they'll never forget. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 3 weeks. I'd been gone exactly 3 weeks working the biggest marketing consultation project of my career in Seattle. Meridian Tech Solutions had flown me out to rebrand their entire digital presence, and the work had been extraordinary. 18-hour days, collaboration with C-suite executives, strategy sessions that stretched until dawn. The kind of project that could finally prove I wasn't the disappointment my family had always implied I was. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd spent 3 weeks crafting a narrative of success and transformation for a tech company, only to come home and discover my own family had been crafting a very different narrative about me. I remember the last conversation I'd had with Vivian, just that morning as I sat in SeaTac Airport waiting for my delayed flight. I'd called her, excited, practically vibrating with good news. "Mom, you're not going to believe this," I'd said, using the title that had never felt quite natural, but that I'd forced myself to use for 23 years. Meridian wants to offer me a partnership. Not just a contract extension, an actual partnership in their marketing division. I'd be relocating to Seattle, but the salary. I'd paused, almost embarrassed by the number, $180,000 to start, plus equity. There had been a pause on the other end. A beat too long. "That's wonderful, honey," Vivian had said finally, her voice carrying that particular note I'd learned to recognize over the years. The one that meant she was saying the right words while thinking something entirely different. "When do you get home?" "Flight lands at 10:47. "I know it's late, but I couldn't wait until tomorrow to tell you everything. I'm catching a ride share straight from the airport." "Can't wait to hear all about it," she'd said. "We'll be here." Now, sitting in that ride share in the driveway I'd pulled into thousands of times before, watching my life scattered across the lawn like refuse, I understood that pause. That careful tone. That promise that they'd be here. They'd been preparing. My stepfather Garrison emerged from behind the house, his 6'2" frame moving with the deliberate swagger of a man who thought he was performing strength for an audience. In his hands was my college diploma, the one I'd worked 3 jobs to earn, The one that had taken me 6 years because I'd had to pay my own way through school while living at home and contributing to household expenses. He held it up to the cameras, and I watched in real time as he tore it in half. "This is what participation trophies look like when they grow up," he announced to Vivian's Livestream. "Meaningless pieces of paper for meaningless achievements." The paper fluttered to the wet ground, and something inside my chest cracked like ice under pressure. That's when I saw the whole cast of this particular horror show. Serafina, my 24-year-old stepsister, had set up what could only be described as a professional streaming setup on the front porch. Ring lights, a microphone on a boom arm, even a backdrop banner that read Serafina's Real Talk in glittering gold letters. She had 12,000 followers on Instagram and had been trying to break into the influencer space for 2 years, posting lifestyle content and authentic family moments that always felt rehearsed and hollow. Tonight, apparently, my destruction was her content. "Guys, this is actually happening right now," she was saying to her phone, her voice pitched in that particular way internet personalities use when they want to sound both excited and concerned. "This is what it looks like when a family finally sets boundaries with a toxic person. Make sure you're following for more real family content. This is the stuff other influencers won't show you." I could see the viewer count climbing in real time. 847 viewers. 1,203, 1,556. My humiliation was going viral. My stepbrother Caspian, 28 and still living in the basement despite having a decent job at First National Bank, was clearly the camera operator for this particular production. He moved around the scene with practiced efficiency, capturing different angles, making sure every moment of my shock and disbelief was documented for posterity. "There she is." Serafina squealed suddenly, pointing her phone at my car like she'd spotted a celebrity. "The princess returns to her castle of trash. Everyone say hi to Thessaly in the chat." I watched the comments stream across her screen. "She looks shocked, lol. Why is she just sitting there? This is better than Netflix family drama hits different. She really thought she could use them forever." Caspian zoomed in on my face through the windshield, and I realized they could see me clearly. See the confusion, the hurt, the disbelief written across my features like subtitles. "Look at that expression," he called out, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. "That's the face of someone who just realized the free ride is over." I got out of the car slowly, my legs unsteady not from the long flight, but from the surreal nightmare I'd apparently walked into. The October air bit through my professional blazer, the one I'd worn to my final presentation with Meridian, the one that had made me feel confident and successful just 12 hours ago. Now it felt like a costume from a play I'd stopped being cast in. "Mom?" My voice came out smaller than I intended, almost lost in the sound of rain hitting plastic garbage bags. "What's happening here?" Vivian turned toward me with the practiced grace of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. Her expression was perfect, just the right amount of maternal disappointment mixed with righteous anger. I'd seen her practice this look in the mirror when she thought no one was watching. "Don't call me that," she said clearly, precisely, loud enough for every microphone and camera to catch. "I'm not your mother, Thessaly. I never was your mother. And after tonight, you're not my problem anymore." The words hit like a physical blow. I'd been adopted at 3 after my biological parents died in a car accident that I barely remembered. Vivian and her first husband, Robert, had taken me in through the state system. When Robert died of a heart attack 5 years later and Vivian married Garrison, I'd tried so desperately to fit into their new blended family. To earn my place. To be worth keeping. "I don't understand," I said, taking a step toward the nearest garbage bag. "I've been working. I've been paying rent. I was going to tell you about the partnership offer." "Partnership?" Garrison's laugh was like breaking glass, sharp and ugly. "You mean the fantasy job you made up to impress us?" "We know the truth, Thessaly. We know you've been lying about everything." "Lying about what?" I knelt down next to one of the torn bags, recognizing my winter coat, the one with the small burn mark on the sleeve from when I'd gotten too close to a candle last Christmas. "I don't understand what you think I've been lying about." Serafina spun her phone to capture both of us in the frame, narrating like a nature documentary. "Watch this, guys. This is what gaslighting looks like when it doesn't work anymore." She's still trying to pretend she doesn't know what we're talking about. The rent, Thessaly. Vivian pulled out her own phone, swiping to what looked like a banking app with theatrical precision. According to this, the account you've been paying us from doesn't exist. The routing number is fake. Every single check you've given us for the past 8 months has bounced. My chest tightened like someone was pulling a rope around my ribs. That's impossible. I set up automatic transfers from my business account. I watched them go through every month. The business account for your made-up consulting company? Caspian stepped closer, zooming in on my face with his phone. The one registered to a P.O. box that doesn't exist? The one with a phone number that goes straight to voicemail. I fumbled for my phone with shaking fingers, opening my banking app while rain soaked through my blazer. The account was there. Corecom Marketing Solutions. The business account I'd opened 2 years ago when I'd started freelancing. The transfers were there too, 8 months of $800 payments, all marked as completed, all showing successful transactions. This is real, I whispered, turning my phone screen toward them. Look, it's all here. 8 months of payments, all successful. The account balance, the transaction history. Garrison snatched the phone from my hands so quickly I didn't have time to react. He glanced at the screen for maybe 2 seconds, then tossed it carelessly into one of the garbage bags where it landed with a sickening splash in a puddle of rainwater. Photoshopped screenshots don't count as evidence, sweetheart, he said with the kind of condescending tone usually reserved for small children or very stupid adults. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you most, hit that subscribe button. You're about to see what real revenge looks like when someone pushes the wrong woman too far. What would you do if you were in this situation? Tell me in the comments below. I want you to admit it, Vivian said, stepping into the circle of phone cameras that had somehow materialized around us. I noticed for the first time that several neighbors had come out to watch. Mrs. Holloway from across the street stood on her porch with her arms wrapped around herself. Mr. Pettigrew was openly filming from his front yard. The Patterson twins from next door had their faces pressed against their upstairs window like this was dinner theater. On camera, Vivian continued, her voice carrying that particular authority she'd always wielded like a weapon. Tell everyone what you really are. Mom, please. The word felt foreign and desperate in my mouth. There's been some kind of mistake. I can show you bank statements, I can call my clients, I can prove. Say it. Garrison's voice exploded across the yard with enough force that I actually flinched backward. Say you're a liar and a thief. I'm not. The words came out as a whisper first, then stronger as something in my chest hardened. I'm not a liar. I'm not a thief. I work 60-hour weeks. I've been trying to make you proud, trying to contribute to this family. Family? Serafina's laugh was particularly vicious, high and bright, and designed to cut. You're not family, Thessaly. You never were. You're just some random kid the state dumped on us because nobody else wanted you. And honestly, now I understand why. She was live streaming to 8,000 followers now. I could see the viewer count climbing steadily, along with comments that made my skin crawl. OMG, adopted kids are always the worst. She really thought she was entitled to free housing forever. This is what happens when you don't set boundaries. Look at her face, LMAO, she's so delusional. Adopted trauma hits different. She's literally stealing from people who saved her life. Proud? Caspian joined the chorus, his voice dripping with mock disbelief. Of what exactly? Your pathetic attempts to pretend you're successful? Your desperate need for attention and validation? Face it, Thessaly, you're 26 years old, and you've never accomplished anything real in your entire life. I bent down to pick up one of my photo albums, its pages soggy and separating like tissue paper. Inside were pictures I'd treasured for years, family vacations to Lake George, birthday parties in this same backyard, Christmas mornings around the tree in the living room. Memories I'd held onto as proof that I belonged somewhere, that someone had chosen to love me even if my biological parents couldn't. Now they looked like evidence of my own delusion. Don't touch that, Vivian snapped with real venom in her voice. You lost the right to those memories when you decided to steal from us. That's when I saw it, half hidden under a pile of my soaked sweaters. My college diploma, or what was left of it after Garrison's dramatic performance. But there was something else with it. My high school yearbook, the one where I'd been voted most likely to succeed. Someone had taken a red marker to every picture of me in it, drawing devil horns, blacking out my teeth, writing fraud across my senior quote. The quote I'd been so proud of, "The only impossible journey is the one you never begin." Now it read, "The only impossible journey is the one you never begin. Fraud." Who did this? I asked, holding up the defaced yearbook. "We all did," Serafina said cheerfully, pointing her camera at the destroyed book. It was like group therapy. Very cathartic. You should try it sometime, facing reality instead of living in fantasyland. Something inside me went very, very quiet. Not sad. Not angry. Just quiet. Like the moment right before a storm breaks, when even the wind stops moving. I stood up slowly, brushing muddy water off my hands. I looked at each of them in turn. Vivian with her phone held high like a weapon, performing maternal disappointment for an audience that was eating it up. Garrison with his arms crossed and jaw locked, playing the put-upon stepfather who'd finally reached his breaking point. Caspian bouncing slightly on his heels like this was the best entertainment he'd had all year. Serafina with her professional setup, treating my devastation like content to monetize. Thessaly. Mrs. Holloway called from across the street, her voice cutting through the rain and the performance. "Are you all right, honey?" I turned toward her voice, and for the first time all evening, someone was looking at me with genuine human concern instead of voyeuristic entertainment or calculated cruelty. "I'm fine, Mrs. Holloway," I called back, and my voice came out steady. Calm. "I'm just taking out the trash." I walked to my car without looking back, ignoring the fresh wave of commentary from Serafina's audience. "She's walking away, lol. Guilt is making her run, can't face the truth. This is actually sad. She's gonna cry in her car." But I didn't cry. I got in, started the engine, and sat there for just a moment, looking at the house where I'd spent 23 years of my life. The house where I'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where I'd had my first heartbreak in my bedroom, where I'd celebrated getting into college with a family dinner that I'd thought meant they were proud of me. Behind me, I could hear Vivian scrambling to control the narrative as I failed to provide the dramatic breakdown they'd obviously been hoping for. "She's in denial," she announced to the cameras, her voice taking on the practiced tone of a concerned parent. This is what happens when you enable someone for too long. They can't face reality when it finally catches up with them. I pulled away from 1247 Maple Grove Lane and drove through the rain toward the only person I trusted to help me figure out what had just happened. Indigo Reeves lived in a converted warehouse apartment in the Riverside district, 20 minutes across town from the suburban nightmare I'd just escaped. She'd been my college roommate, the only person who'd ever seen through my family's carefully constructed performance of dysfunction. She was also the only person who'd never made me feel like I had to earn the right to exist in her space. When I knocked on her door at 12:43 a.m., soaking wet and empty-handed except for my purse, she took one look at me and pulled me inside without a single question. "Tea, whiskey, or immediate violence against whoever did this to you?" she asked, hanging up my damp blazer and handing me an oversized hoodie that smelled like her lavender detergent. "Information first," I said, my voice still unnaturally calm. "Something's not right, Indigo. The bank account they said was fake. I've been watching money come out of it for months. The business registration they said doesn't exist. I have all the paperwork. Either I'm having some kind of psychotic break or they're lying," she finished, handing me her laptop. "Show me everything. This is about to get absolutely insane." If you're loving this story so far, smash that like button and share this with every woman who needs to hear that we don't have to take abuse from anyone. For the next hour, we went through my digital life with the methodical precision of forensic investigators. I logged into my banking app, pulled up months of transaction history, screenshotted every page. Business registration portal, client contracts, tax filings, insurance policies. Everything was there. Everything was real. Everything proved that Corecom Marketing Solutions was a legitimate business and that I'd been paying rent faithfully for 8 months. "Thessaly," Indigo said quietly, pointing to a folder icon on my laptop desktop that I'd never seen before. "What's this one labeled evidence?" I clicked it open, and my blood turned to ice water. Inside were dozens of files I'd never created. Screenshots of fake bank statements showing my account as closed. Edited images of bounced checks with insufficient funds stamped across them in red. Modified business registration documents showing my company as dissolved and my business address as a vacant lot. I didn't create any of these, I whispered. Indigo's expression darkened as she scrolled through file after file of manufactured evidence designed to make me look like a fraud. But someone did. Someone who had access to your computer and knows enough about photo editing to make these look official. The pieces started clicking together like puzzle pieces I'd been trying to ignore for months. Serafina, who'd borrowed my laptop dozens of times over the past year to work on school projects and edit videos for her Instagram. Caspian, who worked at a bank and had always been so interested in my business finances, asking detailed questions about my accounts and client payments. Garrison, who'd insisted on helping me set up my business banking and had somehow ended up with all my login information. They didn't discover I was a fraud, I said slowly, the truth settling over me like cold water. They created evidence to make me look like one. But why? Indigo asked. What's the point of destroying your reputation and kicking you out? I stared at the fake documents on the screen, thinking about the timing. 8 months of fake evidence. 8 months of setting up this exact scenario. 8 months of building a case against me that would justify whatever they were planning. I don't know, I said. But I'm going to find out. That's when my phone buzzed with a notification. A voicemail from a number I didn't recognize, left at 3:17 a.m. I put it on speaker. Miss Morningstar, this is Cordelia Blackwood from Blackwood Legal Associates. I've been trying to reach you for over a year regarding your inheritance. I believe your family may be intercepting my correspondence. Please call me immediately. This is urgent. Indigo and I stared at each other. Inheritance, I whispered. I called the number at 7:23 a.m., my hands shaking as I dialed. Thessaly Morningstar? The voice was professional, authoritative, with just a hint of southern accent. Thank God you finally got my message. This is Cordelia Blackwood. I was your mother's business partner. My mother's business partner? I repeated, grabbing the notebook Indigo had given me. I don't understand. My adoptive mother doesn't have a business partner. Not Vivian Ashworth, Cordelia said, and I could hear papers rustling in the background. Your biological mother, Evangeline Morningstar. I've been trying to reach you for over 13 months, but my letters keep getting returned to sender. My heart stopped completely. Letters? What letters? Dozens of them. All sent to your family's address on Maple Grove Lane. All marked return to sender. Addressee unknown in what I now recognize as Vivian Ashworth's handwriting. 20 minutes later, I was in my car driving toward downtown, my mind racing faster than the speedometer. Cordelia had given me an address, the Blackwood Building, 47 stories of glass and steel that dominated the city's skyline. Her office was on the 42nd floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city look like a toy set spread out below. Cordelia herself was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked auburn hair and the kind of quiet authority that came from building empires rather than inheriting them. Sit down, honey, she said, gesturing to a leather chair across from her massive mahogany desk. We have a lot to discuss. She poured 2 cups of coffee from an expensive-looking machine and slid a thick leather portfolio across the desk. Your mother and I started Blackwood Morningstar Commercial Properties when we were just 24 years old, she said, her voice warm but serious. 2 women with more ambition than capital and a vision for what this city could become. I stared at the documents without really seeing them, my brain struggling to process what she was telling me. My mother, she had a business? She had an empire, Thessaly. We owned office buildings, retail complexes, apartment communities across 3 states. Your mother was brilliant. She could see potential in properties that everyone else dismissed. We built something extraordinary together. Cordelia opened the portfolio, revealing architectural drawings, property deeds, and financial statements that looked like they belonged in a museum. When she died, she left everything to you in a trust that would activate on your 20th birthday. She wanted you to have time to grow up, to find yourself, before you inherited the responsibility of running a multi-million-dollar empire. The room started spinning. I'm 26. I know. Cordelia's expression grew dark. The trust has been active for 13 months. You should have been receiving monthly distributions of $45,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $45,000? Per month. Cordelia opened her laptop and turned it toward me, showing bank statements that made my eyes water. Columns of numbers that represented more money than I'd ever imagined existing. Account balances with commas in places I'd never seen commas before. Your mother left you a 60% stake in a commercial real estate empire currently valued at $4.2 million. You, Thessaly Morningstar, are a multimillionaire. I stared at the screen until the numbers started to blur together. Row after row of transactions, property values, rental income statements. It was real. It was all real. But I never received any of this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I would have known. Someone would have told me. Someone has been intercepting your mail, forging your signature on legal documents, and electronically transferring your inheritance to accounts they control. Cordelia's voice was ice-cold with barely controlled fury. Look at this. She clicked through screen after screen of evidence that made my blood run cold. Bank records showing electronic transfers from my trust to accounts registered to Vivian Ashworth and Garrison Caldwell. Forged signature cards that looked nothing like my actual handwriting. Legal documents claiming I was mentally incapacitated and unable to manage my own affairs. They've been stealing from you systematically for 13 months, Cordelia said, her words hitting me like physical blows. They've taken $585,000 of your inheritance. The room went completely silent except for the sound of my heart hammering in my chest. $585,000, I repeated slowly. Every penny of it electronic transfer across state lines, which makes it federal wire fraud. Cordelia leaned forward, her eyes blazing with righteous anger. Mail fraud for intercepting your correspondence. Tax evasion for not reporting the income. Identity theft for forging your signature on federal documents. She pulled out a thick legal folder and set it on the desk between us. Thessaly, what your family has done to you isn't just theft. It's federal crimes that carry serious prison time. We're talking about 20 years per count of wire fraud, 20 years per count of mail fraud, 5 years per count of tax evasion. I stared at the evidence spread across Cordelia's desk, my mind reeling. Last night, I'd thought my family was cruel and possibly mentally unstable. Now I understood they were criminals. Federal criminals who'd been systematically stealing from me for over a year while gaslighting me into thinking I was the problem. But how is this even possible? I asked, my voice hollow. How did they access my accounts? How did they forge legal documents? How did they? Because they've been planning this since before your 25th birthday, Cordelia said, her expression grim. The fake evidence on your computer, the manufactured financial documents, the public humiliation last night, it was all designed to discredit you if you ever discovered the truth. She leaned back in her chair, and for the first time since I'd met her, she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. They thought they were so clever, stealing from an orphan who'd never know what she was missing. They thought they could gaslight you into believing you were worthless, while they lived off your mother's legacy. What do we do? I whispered. Cordelia picked up her phone and started dialing. We destroy them, she said simply. All of them. Legally, financially, and completely. And when we're done, they'll spend the next decade in federal prison thinking about what they did to you. She held up a finger as someone answered on the other end. Magnolia? It's Cordelia Blackwood. I need to see you immediately. I have a federal case that's going to make your career. Oh my God. This is about to get absolutely insane. If you're dying to see what happens when my team of federal prosecutors come for this family, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because part 2 is going to be the most satisfying revenge story you've ever seen. What do you think should happen to Vivian, Garrison, Serafina, and Caspian? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you're Team Thessaly. Part 2 drops soon, and trust me, you do not want to miss the epic federal takedown that's coming for this family.